Okay, so for any leader out there, this is the core challenge, right? You've got all this financial data, but how do you actually turn it into smart, decisive action? In this explainer, we're going to walk through the essentials for transforming those raw numbers into a winning strategy. So, picture this. That big report lands on your desk. It's just full of charts, figures, balance sheets. The whole financial health check is done. But the real question, the one that matters, is still hanging in the air. Now what? What are you supposed to do with all this information? And that right there is the crucial point. Getting the report isn't the finish line, not even close. It's the starting gun. You know, the numbers themselves, they don't do anything. It's the analysis that comes next, that investigation. That's what really drives your next move. All right, so where do we even begin this investigation? Well, we start with our first tool, CVP analysis. This helps us get under the hood and understand the real engine of the business by looking at the relationship between three key things: your costs, your sales volume, and your price. This is absolutely key to mastering that day-to-day profitability. Think of these three elements as levers you can pull. First, you have to know, really know, what it costs to produce your product or your service. Then you need to understand how the volume of what you sell impacts those costs and your bottom line. And finally, once you have that knowledge, you can strategically set your price to hit the profit you're aiming for. See, they're all deeply connected. Now, this concept, it might sound simple, but it is so incredibly powerful. CVP analysis gives you clear answers to these critical questions. Questions like, how many units do we have to sell just to break even? Or maybe, what happens to our profit if we drop our price a bit to sell more? It's basically your tactical playbook for those day-to-day decisions. But, day-to-day operations, that's only half the story. While CVP gives you that view from the factory floor, you also need that 30,000-foot view of the entire landscape. And to get that bigger perspective on long-term performance, we're going to turn to our second tool, investment ratios. And that brings us to our second key tool. Evaluating investment ratios takes us from the operational and shoots us right up to the strategic level. This is less about the profitability of one single sale and much more about the overall performance and health of the entire company. This is really the fundamental question that investment ratios help us answer. Are we using the money we have, from investors, from our own earnings, in the most efficient way possible to create more value? It's pretty much the ultimate report card on how effective your strategy really is. So this is the kind of high-level intelligence you start to get. You're moving way beyond simple profit to understand the quality of that profit. How efficiently are you using your assets? Is your financial foundation actually stable enough for the long haul? And this one's critical. How do you really stack up against the competition? Okay, so we've got two powerful sets of tools. One for what's happening on the ground and one for the big picture strategy. The real magic, the real payoff, happens when you bring them together. This is where all that analysis finally transforms into clear, confident, and empowered decisions. So what does an empowered decision actually look like in the real world? Well, it means you're not just guessing on your price anymore. You're setting it strategically using CVP analysis. You're not just crossing your fingers and hoping an expansion works out. You're evaluating its potential returns using investment ratios. This is the definitive shift from just going with your gut to being a truly data-driven leader. So the crucial point, just like our source material highlights, is this very deliberate two-step process. First, you have to identify those key relationships in your business, like cost, volume, and price. And then you evaluate the bigger picture using tools like investment ratios. It's all about having a disciplined approach. When you boil it all down, what this all comes back to is a huge shift in perspective. Financial data isn't just some boring spreadsheet. If you know how to read it, it's a narrative. It's telling you a story about what's working, what isn't, and where all the opportunities are hiding. So I'll leave you with this question. By using these tools to identify and evaluate, you become the person who can interpret your company's story. You can understand the plot, you can see the turning points, and most importantly, you actually get to write the next chapter. The only question is, what story is your data just waiting to tell you?